Hey everyone, this is Jabron Nassif. We got a very special guest with us today, Amy Sheppard. Thank you so much for joining. Very talented musician. She's part of the band Sheppard and also does um, her own music as well, solo music, which we're going to talk about throughout this episode and some really fun topics. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. And just I wanted to see how you're doing.
Thanks, Jabron. Yeah, I'm great. I told you a little bit earlier off the call that we have just moved to Nashville, myself and the band, and our partners. So there's six of us who are new to town and we've made the big move across the pond. So I'm feeling good. I feel like I've finally gotten over the jet lag. I'm settled in and ready for a new adventure.
Yeah, that's super exciting. You know, that's such a far trip because you're in Australia, so it probably took because
Mhm.
everyone has jet lag, even like 2 hour flights, whatever. But everyone tuning in,
Yeah.
that's like an extreme transition. So kudos for you guys, and welcome to the U.S. That's super exciting. And you're
Thank
based in
you.
Nashville now. You were saying?
Yeah, yep. So I've been to Nashville. This is my fourth time to Nashville. First trip was into 2019, and we've been to the States a bunch, but it never felt like home or somewhere where I could see myself living because often we'd visit LA or New York, and it was just too overwhelming for us to consider moving here. Plus, being so far away from our friends and our family, it just was seemed like the impossible task. And then in 2019, I decided that I wanted to start getting into the country industry. And um, I've loved country
Nice.
for so long, and we'll get into that no doubt about how I actually decided to do that. But I took a trip to Nashville in 2019. I was like, this place is what we've been looking for. It's incredible. People are friendly. It's not too dissimilar to Brisbane, which is where we live in Australia. Um, and everyone I met wanted to do a writing session. I just like couldn't believe the opportunities that were coming my way just by simply being in the city. So I went back home and told the clan, I was like, we've got to move to Nashville. It's
Yeah.
actually the best city I've been to.
Yeah.
Lockie, my husband, came over for a trip. He loved it, and then we just convinced the rest of them that this is a move that we needed to make. So here we are. We're just going to take every
Yeah.
opportunity that comes our way and give it a crack.
No, that's amazing. It's also interesting too how Australia people tuning in like in the US are listeners like Australians love country music and there's a lot of country music
Mhm.
over there because I
Yeah,
guess people in the States think it's just like country music's here, but
yeah.
there's a big influence of country music in Australia, which we'll talk about all that the solo stuff. But yeah, that's really exciting. So welcome again, and yeah, I hope to come out to Nashville. I'm in New Orleans, so I'm not too far away from you.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'll make it out to Nashville soon because I love the great barbecue over there. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but there's just great
Yeah,
food
we
over there
have.
too.
It's actually my brother's birthday, so we're going out to barbecue tonight. I'm excited.
Nice. Let's go back for a minute. Tell us how it's a very broad question, but how did you get into music in the first place?
Um, Look, it goes way back to when I was probably about the age of 10. And I feel like I wasn't really good at anything, I wasn't really outstanding or at sport. I wasn't, I was just like an average student. And so when I came across my dad's old guitar in the storage, like under the stairs, I found this guitar and I was like, this is
Nice.
cool. Like, I really want to learn how to play. So I just kind of carried this guitar around for a week or so, and it had three strings. I just pretended to play and sing. And so my parents decided to get me some lessons. And our primary school music teacher happened to be this incredible musician who had been a session musician for years, and he had toured with the likes of Madonna as a session musician and
Nice.
uh, Janet Jackson. So he was just really, really accomplished. And because we actually grew up in Papua New Guinea, which is the country above Australia, and
Okay.
it's a third world country, an island nation, and I was born there. So we weren't really exposed to a lot of, the top 40. We were kind of just exposed to what my parents were listening to. And so from a young age, we already had that influence of like, my dad's a huge country music fan, and we were listening to the Eagles and Dolly Parton from a really young age. But yeah, when I finally started guitar lessons with this guy, he was telling me, he taught me how to write a song and really instilled
Cool.
the fact that I needed to start writing my own music if I wanted to be where I said I wanted to be. So he taught me how to write a song, taught me like just the basic chords, and away I went. And I just kind of had this tunnel vision for this dream ever since then. And yeah, it wasn't until after school that I didn't go to uni right away. I went to college, which is
Mhm.
like TAFE, which is, I don't know what it's here, like a um, I'm not sure what the equivalent is here, but I studied a diploma of music.
Music education is so important. So what going to the band Shepherd, which is also your last name, is
Yeah.
that so how did that whole band form when it comes to
So
that?
so when I was at this college, I one of my assignments was to write, produce, and market this EP. And of course, I left it to the last minute. I was kind of freaking out. I was like, oh, I haven't like, I'm so disorganized. And then George kind of heard me fumbling around on the guitar, trying to come up with some music. And he kind of like just was hanging out, was like, what are you working on? He's like, oh, why don't you do this? And what if you put a harmony in here? And we wrote this incredible song together, and we worked out then and there that we work really well together. And I did well on the assignment, and we continued writing together. So we were like this folky duo. We started busking in Brisbane and doing just like the little community festivals, the free, not paid, just free festivals where we could perform. And then we slowly started adding band members. And soon after, we met Jason Bavino, who was our guitar player back in Brisbane. And he was living in Sydney at the time. Um, but he was friends with my brother. So he was like, oh, I play guitar. I'm going to come and
Yeah.
write with you guys. I'm like, sweet. And then we wrote a song called Let Me Down Easy, which was our first single in Australia. And we just like hit it off. For some reason, it was just that magical chemistry between the three of us, and we wrote a bunch of songs and decided that we'd start this band. And then my little sister, she finished school and she didn't know what she wanted to do, so she wasn't a bass player or a musician at the time. But we're like, why don't you just learn? We'll see where it goes. So
Yeah.
she actually
Great.
flew up to Papua New Guinea. Yeah, she flew up to Papua New Guinea because my dad, he still lives there, and she did like an intensive 3 week base camp with this musician that I was telling you about earlier, teacher, and she learned how to play bass for the band, which is really, kudos to her because she put in the hard work. And um, yeah, I mean, I think she gets a bit self-conscious sometimes, being like, oh, I never like really learned how to play from a young age, but she's really come a long way, and she's just a great bassist. So um, yeah, it was awesome, just the three of us working together, and Jay, who's like our surrogate brother. The four of us just had something special between us. And it so we released Let Me Down Easy, and it went to number, I don't know, 13 in Australia, which is a big deal for a band who hadn't done anything before, or just, I
Yeah.
guess we just had a fresh kind of sound. Um, and at the same time, our music teacher introduced us to this guy called Michael Chugg. And Michael Chugg is like this Australian legend. He's a promoter. So to this day, he'll bring in like the Chicks and Keith Urban, Elton John. But we found out that he was starting a music management business and was looking for bands. So we got a rare opportunity, and it was just kind of like stars aligning. We got into his office and he's like, okay, play some music for me. And we are like sweating because he's such a music legend in Australia, and he comes across really gruff and scary, and like we had this one shot kind of moment. But he seemed to like us, and he came and watched us perform live and decided that he wanted to sign us. So he took us on our first tour, and it was actually, he's like, oh, I've got this friend who's got a festival in South Africa. So we flew over to South Africa, played a
Nice.
festival there, and then we flew over to the United States and did a festival called Summertime something. Anyway, it was in Central Park, and
Mm.
met a bunch of people. And then before we knew it, Let Me Down Easy was on college radio here in the States. And it got to like number one on this particular radio station in Portland, Oregon. And so we went and did this show, and it was like this whole sea of people for the first time singing Let Me Down Easy back to us. And then Australia kind of picked up on it and was like, who's this band and what are they doing in the States? Because they're blowing up over there. And so um, we did a morning show in Australia, and then before we knew it, like our music was all over the radio, and yeah, we started to take off. And a few weeks later, we wrote Geronimo.
I know. Yeah, funny enough, before we did this interview, when was it? So I worked for Universal Music Group for a while, and we that was one of the first campaigns we did was with that single. So it was interesting. I was down in
Um,
Texas helping the team in the South promote. You guys were on tour. Was it with Megan Trainor?
yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was that
Wow.
tour. So
Crazy. It's a lot.
um, yeah, it was funny. This was in Houston, so I think that was. Um,
Mhm.
I guess the House of Blues over there, but small world. It was great
Yeah.
seeing that song explode. When that song was being created, did you guys? Was it kind of that situation where like you didn't expect it to become a hit, or you had that kind of magical feeling inside? You were like, okay, this is
Um,
gonna be big.
a bit of both, I'd say. Because we were nobodies, we never expected it to do what it did, but we knew that it was a special song, and we knew that every time we played it to someone, they were like, "What is that song? Like, who are you guys? When's Geronimo coming out?" We started teasing it on our Instagram page, and people were just obsessed with it. And so we knew that if people could hear it, it would do well. But it surpassed all of our wildest dreams. Like, we were just hoping to match the success of Let Me Down Easy so we could maybe
Mm,
have a career. Um, but this just took us international, and all of a sudden it was at number one in Australia. And before we knew it, Scooter Braun was calling us up on the phone, being
yeah,
like, "Hey, I saw you guys at number one. You started to chart in the States. Let's have a meeting." And so he signed us for that campaign, for the Geronimo campaign. And yeah, it was just like a bit of a whirlwind. We were on Jimmy Fallon, we were on Ellen, we were in the States, we were in Europe, we were in Asia. Like, it was just like the wildest 2 years. It went for a while, and I feel like the song that never dies, like, it's just such a gift and such a blessing in our lives, because it's still charting in Australia. It still every now and then has
yeah,
peaks, and like, it's just a monster song that we had no idea that we'd written at the time.
yeah, yeah. It's like a one of those lifetime generational hits. Like it's interesting too because you have that. You probably had that interest, like that big feeling of making it in the States, and it's the same thing vice versa. Like when a band in the U.S. breaks out and they play in Europe or even Australia or somewhere on the other side of the water, um,
Mm.
it's just like, oh, you have that feeling. Okay, this is what it feels like to make it. So that's interesting. That's really cool. So going into that long career of Shepherd, you've moved to the States, and let's talk about your solo stuff. You have Nothing But Wild, you released about a year ago, and then now there's Overthinking, your
Hmm.
newest single. So you're doing the solo stuff. It sounds really good. I was listening to
Thank you.
Overthinking earlier, so um, exciting stuff. Tell me about the process behind it. What got you into to doing this solo adventure, and things like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier how my dad was a really big country music fan, and he used to wake us up in the morning blasting country music. And
Oh
it was
wow,
the 90s. So, when I was
yeah,
learning how to songwrite, it really was like Trisha Yearwood and Leanne Rimes, Shania Twain, all those women who really paved the way for pop country, which is where I believe I sit. Um, and it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to do a country project, but obviously Shepherd happened in its own way, and of course, you kind of follow where the tide takes you. But in the back of my mind, I always had this itch to write country music, and sometimes when I do write with Shepherd, they're like, "Oh, that was a bit of a country twang. Like, can you sing that again, but without the yodel?" I'm like, "Oh," so I kind of ran out of reasons why I shouldn't just write a country song and see what happens. And so I wrote a song called Blue Guitar, which is on the Nothing But Wild EP. And I sent it around to some of my friends in Australia who are in the country industry. I sent it to my manager because he's got, big connections in the country world, just to see if I was being a little bit ambitious or whether it was a bit, I don't know, on the nose for me to change genres. And they loved it. And they said, just keep writing, like, go to Nashville, see what comes out. And so I did it. And it felt right. Like I've never felt like I've been pretending to be like somebody who grew up in a farm, but I didn't
Yeah.
actually grow up in the city. I grew up in a small town. So, um, yeah, I kind of do relate a lot to country music and, some of the storytelling and the stories about
Yeah.
growing up in small towns. Um, yeah, but I'm never going to pretend to be like, yeehaw, a full country
Yeah.
artist. I can only just
Yeah.
write from my own experiences. And um, I feel like what I'm doing, there's definitely space for it, more than ever. Country is really, it's not just one thing anymore. Country music is like, there's country pop and there's country and western and there's Americana, there's country hip hop now, I've seen what
Yeah.
Hardy's doing and it's really unique and different and it's an exciting time for country music, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. I actually worked in the country industry for a bit on the business side in Austin. Eli Young Band. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Okay.
They wrote Crazy
No.
Girls, a very big hit. But I would go to
Yeah.
Nashville often. But no, I just realized that industry is it's very family oriented and it's very like supportive of one another. And there's other
Yeah.
genres that do that. Terms of country, it's always growing and evolving, in so many ways.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see that you're embracing that. And yeah, the songs are great. What was the process behind, some of those songs? Like when it comes to the songwriting and the production
Mhm.
side, what kind of like sparked the moment for you to, to write these songs?
Well, I started the whole process in 2019, so it's actually taken a really long time for me to figure out the sound that I wanted to go for, figure out
Yeah.
exactly what producer I wanted to use, because I was like, oh, I'll just use the producer that I used for Sheppard. But it didn't quite work out. And so I
Mm,
recorded the EP that's out now like three times maybe. It was like quite an experimental and expensive process, but it was really important to me to get it right. So um, when I came out to Nashville, I met a producer called Lindsay Rhymes, and he's an Australian, but he's like had number ones, and he's just like an incredible songwriter and producer. And he's one of those producers that you go in with a song idea, and then when you leave, you have a full finished produced song. Um, and so I wrote Nothing But Wild with him and another Nashville writer called Tranny Anderson. And the three of us wrote Nothing But Wild, and I was like, yes, like this is the sound I'm after. It's just like
yeah.
almost like that Keith Urban country where it's like, yeah, it's poppy, it's rocky, it's punchy. Um, yeah, so it really got that sound here in Nashville. And I continue to work with Lindsay remotely back home, and I'd record back home and send him the files, and yeah, we went back and forth and produced this EP, and it had a lot of success back in Australia. I think at the moment I'm the number one Australian female played on radio, country radio,
Wow.
which is really
Congrats.
exciting.
That's
And
great.
thank you, thank you. People are starting to gravitate towards it. So overthinking, it's not part of the EP, but it'll be part of an album that I'm working towards. I hope to work with Lindsay again on this album, but now that I'm out here and coming into connection with lots of different writers and producers, like anything could happen. But I have enough songs now for an album, but I'm still very much in the writing experimental phase. So I'm really focusing on dropping singles, and eventually that'll come out in an album. But I feel like I've just got so much potential in me now that I'm here to write new songs and exciting songs. So the job's never finished. I think it'll just keep on rolling over, and yeah, we'll see where it
Yeah.
goes now that I'm here in Nashville.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, you got the talent, you got the energy, you got the enthusiasm. That's all you need. That's great. Really, really cool. So when it comes to, your social media is great, and you do a lot of empowering stuff. And there's a lot of pros and cons of social media. So you've done
Mhm.
some, I guess you could say, like programs and things of awareness. So what are those kind of things that you're trying to push to people on social media with when we're sometimes on social media, we're in such a crowded space of,
Mm.
negativity and things like that.
Yeah, so I call myself a body image cheerleader, and I really try and uh, encourage people, but in particular women and young girls, to be themselves and find their power in their authenticity. Because for a long time, I felt like I wasn't being my authentic self and I was trying to fit into this narrow box of what I thought a pop star should be and look like.
Hmm.
And I don't think that I was reaching my full potential because I was too scared about what others were thinking of me. It just made me really miserable. And I was focusing a lot of time dieting and worried about the way I looked and putting across this particular image. And I could have been using that time to write songs and learn instruments and enjoy my life. So
Yeah.
I really try and show up as the role model that I think I needed at the time. Because when I first started doing this positive body image posting, like nobody was doing it. And I really kind of rocked some boats at the time when I first started doing it. People were really shocked to see someone with cellulite on, and someone in the public eye with cellulite and showing that, and it was really strange
Yeah.
to me. I just couldn't believe people were connecting with it that much. And so I just continue to do it, and it's very much part of what I do. And it might be random to some people if they're just like coming in fresh to see a musician and like a photo of them in a bikini. But I think once you kind of do a bit of research about what I'm all about, I think it's it's an important message, and I think people really gravitate towards it and look up to me for that. So yeah, I'm going to continue doing that in my career for sure.
That's great. And for people watching, you have great artists like Amy that are expressing themselves and showing that personal side that many artists, I guess, sometimes don't want to do that. They don't want to deal with the backlash or whatever other reasons. But that's really amazing. So I have an interesting question because there's a lot of fascination. Just like the American Australian relationship, we have our own slangs here in the South.
Yeah.
And I know Australia does as well. I was looking some up earlier today, and there's like a 20-page PDF of
Oh
like
my
different
goodness.
slang words that you guys use. So what are some everyday slang words that maybe you use that I guess us Americans would be like, oh, I never heard of that.
I'm sure you've probably heard of it, but we use heaps a lot. Have you noticed that? I'm like,
No,
oh,
I
it's
haven't heard
heaps.
that.
It's heaps. Or, oh yeah, I say heaps, heaps.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we use it like instead of saying a lot. And I've noticed when I've said that, people are like, "What'd you say?" I'm like, "Heaps." So I don't know whether you've come across that one.
No, that's a good one. There's one I found. Cut lunch. Is that a sandwich?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That one's not as common, but it's probably more when you're talking about lunch, you wouldn't talk about it, but maybe if you're like just as quick as a cut lunch, like a bit of a
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
a
I like that. I'm gonna
saying,
start saying that.
colloquialism.
That's cool. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, crankies. We use crankies. We all know that one. Um,
What reason?
biscuit, Bicky. Anyways, there's some good stuff there. Um, so people tuning in, look into these because there's just some amazing stuff. Veggies. We say veggies here too. So some of the stuff is the
Yeah.
same.
Veggies.
Yeah.
But then there's things that are just like totally different words, like cilantro, we call coriander. And
Yeah.
then like arugula, we call rocket.
Okay. I'd rather say that. I'm gonna start saying that.
Yeah,
Like,
rocket.
what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. That's cool. When it comes to, I was thinking too, there's so many new artists every day. I don't know what the exact statistic is, but there's like 1,000 new songs on Spotify a day. New artists becoming creative. They have more resources to create new music, put it out there, of course. So, would you have any tips or advice for artists that are trying to get themselves out there? There's so many new artists every day, starting a band, starting whatever, solo career, jazz artist, DJ, et cetera, et cetera. So what kind of, I guess, like tips or advice would you give this new artist that's trying to start out, and you can take it from your own experiences? Like what kind of tips would you give them if you're, let's say, talking to one of them, they ask you?
I think just the importance of songwriting and being able to write your own music and Also, not listening to the imposter syndrome. I think that's something that I'm still getting over, and it's really hard. It's easier said than done, but um, just trying to stay true to yourself and as authentic as possible can be really, really hard to navigate. And especially when there's just so many artists and it's so saturated, it can be hard to try and figure out who you are and what your sound is. So I think it's really important just to take that time and try and block out the noise and the pressure to be something that you're not, maybe, and just to really not be scared to just experiment and give yourself the freedom to be creative. And not everything you create is going to be good. Not everything I create is brilliant, and not every song I write is a hit. So I think just keep writing and keep pushing and do a little bit every day, and you'll get better. And I think that's been our biggest asset and my biggest asset is like I'm terrified to say yes to opportunities every day, but I just keep showing up and I keep doing it and I get better. And you know, if you keep doing it, you're gonna fall on a hit.
Yeah, there we go. Drop the mic, everyone. That was no that those are some great tips. And another thing I'll add on, everyone stop using AI tools for I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AI is not going to create a hit for you. Although, like, maybe it will spark something. I'm not against using different tricks and tips to like spark an idea. If you just like completely blank in on something, maybe you can ask ChatGPT to give you a list of, I don't know, rodeo words or synonyms, and it'll give you like all these ideas, and it might actually lead to something. But in terms of like, it's not going to write a hit for you. So just like remember that. And if it does write a hit, it's average at this point anyway.
Yeah. No, that for resources it's great.
But I'd also say the power of networking. I think that's a big one. I mean, once you get out there and start meeting other people in the industry, whether it's other songwriters, I think a lot of songwriters. Well, I don't know if it's the same here, but back in Australia, people can be reluctant to collaborate or just to be, they want to know that they can do everything themselves. Like they're the producer, they're the songwriter. Where I think just because you're collaborating with other people doesn't mean that you can't write a song yourself. I think it's really important to collaborate and get other ideas and other perspectives and ways of doing things. I think that can be really, really useful. But also just, yeah, getting out and doing those events and doing things for free, getting on the podcasts and meeting people from different industries, because the more people you meet in the creative industries, I think they can connect you with other people. And I think that's been a huge asset to us as well, is just to, yeah, get out there as much as we can, even if it doesn't feel like it might be helping you at the time. There's been so many instances where we've run into people and they've been like, oh, like my friend knows you and he's a producer. So you never know where those connections are going to come from.
Yeah, those are some great tips. And the power of networking is probably the biggest thing in music, since I've worked on both sides of the playing music and then managing artists. And that's a huge part. So amazing tips. Hopefully everyone can take that in, write some notes. People are listening. But thank you so much for joining me today. Everyone, this is Amy Sheppard. Go check out her music, follow her stuff, share her stuff, stream her stuff, do whatever you want to do. But she's very talented, and appreciate you, for coming on this podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, take care.
See ya.